to tell about him. So you all know that we met, well, most of you know that we met at Unity Village. We were working together at Silent Unity, and I think I fell in love with him the first day that I met him. But one of the things that I loved about him was that we'd have a little conversation, and then he would say, "You are a powerful goddess woman." And I would be like, I would stand a little bit taller, and I'd be like, "Wow, I'm a powerful goddess woman." And then I'll remember the first time he said that to me, and then the next day, I just happened to walk past him when he was talking with some other woman, and I heard him say, "Wow, you're a powerful goddess woman." I'm like, "Oh, I got your number." But as you can see, it worked out. Very.
Well, it worked. What can I say? So in order to set you up for this talk here, I need to tell you a little bit about myself, how I got to this place, not the whole story, unless you want to spend hours here, but I can give you just a synopsis of a little bit about me. And I grew up in a very dysfunctional home. Mother and father screaming, hollering, always just no peace. Cussing and swearing and going on. And my father was a control freak. Glad it didn't pass on to me. Hey.
I was watching her.
I knew I'd set her up good. But my mother never had a job. She never drove because they didn't want her to drive. He was afraid she'd run off with somebody. And one of those kind of men that just take, a very hard worker, very great provider, did not drink. But he worked all the time. When he was a mechanic during the day, and he'd get home and he'd work in the garage at night on other people's cars. And it was always, I remember them down there. My mother screaming, "Come up for supper, come up for supper, come up for supper right now." Going back and forth. And I grew up scared, but we grew up on a farm. We grew up on a farm, and I'll just cut to the chase in this. My grandfather, he was getting a bull to mate with these cows that he had. And they dropped the bull off in a truck and backed him up and had a ring in his nose, and he had this long pole, and he had the hook through the bull's nose. We were all out there watching this bull coming in, and Poppy, as we call him, he was walking down like this, turned around, and all of a sudden the hook came out of the bull's nose. How they control that, the bull, is because it's very painful. If they twist it, the bull's not doing what he's supposed to do, they twist it. We were there watching, and all of a sudden, and Papa didn't even know the bull was coming. He was like, 10 feet away, 8 feet away. But all of a sudden, the bull charged and knocked him, hit him down, and he literally flew through the air. My dad wasn't there; we was working. But all us kids and my mother, we were screaming. And my little grandmother, she was probably about 5'3". She got a shovel, like you put shovel coal. We saw her run out there with that shovel and go right up to that bull and start smacking that bull, smacking him. And the bull turned around and walked away. And Poppy, he was beat up pretty bad. It contused his face and all that. But anyway, that was the first powerful woman I ever saw. And it always bothered me that my mom wasn't powerful enough to stand up to my dad. So my grandmother, Naki, as we called her, she was the first powerful woman that I ever saw, and I just respected her immensely. So I grew up angry, as most kids do in that situation, powerless. And I joined the military, and after my stint in the military, I got out and I did a few different things, but where's that clicker here? There you go. But anyway, I had a career. I don't even know what I'm looking at here. There we go. So that's handsome me. That's like about 60 years ago. Can you see it? Yes. Okay. So that's me there, and I started out with the police department and went on to the sheriff's department, and this is me when I became a detective. I used to dye my hair. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up to show you that's where I came from. And my assignments, I can tell you a story about Silent Unity, about how we attract the thoughts we put out, whether they're love or fear, we attract those things to us. My deal was child abuse, and I was a juvenile detective, and I was also a crime investigator, but also really focused around abused women. And once you enter that arena, and you visit the schools, and you visit the hospitals, and you visit the jails, and you try to get the story from the men, from the women, and it just always bugged me because it reminded me of so many women that felt powerless. They felt absolutely powerless. I mean, the thing is, why didn't you call the police? Why don't you leave him? Why are you there? I can understand the gist of it. It's called fear, and what if, and they thought they would put themselves in danger, and some of these guys who attacked the women, I would be very much afraid of them too. They belonged in jail. A lot of them just needed to go to counseling, but that never happened. So I was not brought up religiously. Family never went to church all day. They used to drop me off and my buddy for Sunday school. Another story. So here I am, and I'm facing all these same situations. I'm in this where families are arguing and screaming and threatening each other and beating them up. And a lot of times the wives would beat the husbands off, or the spousal abuse, either one way or the other. And that's the world I was in. And I was never comfortable. I never felt safe and peaceful. I was just always had that on my mind. When you get involved in stuff like that, your mind just takes a nosedive, and you're caught up in that cycle, the dark energy. And whether you're working or whether you're home, it's always there. You can't just turn on the TV and cut it off. And if you're married, as I was at the time, it winds up in divorce because you can't talk about it. And because it's too painful, and you're not supposed to be discussing. Don't discuss this thing with your family. Don't talk to your wives about what's going on, man. They have no right to know, and they'll be gossiping. That's the story you get. And so you're quiet. And then when your wife says, talk to me. What do you want to talk about? I can't talk about it. Well, what'd you do today? I don't want to think about it. I'm off. I've got to shut my mind off. If you had any idea what I was, that kind of stuff went on. And so marriages don't last. And so I stayed in there for 10 years, and another story of how I got out, what I decided to get out. But then I felt like I wanted to do something about finding God. How can I find God? Who is God? What is God? Is it real? My father always said, when you date, you date. It's called lights on, lights off. When the lights off, it's all over. And I had to find out for myself. Water, please. And I had to find out for myself. So I went religion hopping. I went from church to church to church, and every one of them that I went to, they put women second. And they were constantly saying, well, God, no, a woman is made to be a helpmate to a man. A woman can never be equal to a man. That's God's law. Well, where is it? It's in the Bible. Well, who wrote the Bible? Men. Oh, how convenient is that? Oh my goodness. God said that you're in charge if you're a man, and if you're a woman, you're not worthy. Oh, I guess I'll have to listen to God because it would be a sin. That's the story that we've been told. That's the hype that they sold us. And so many still believe. We have wonderful bingo people here. We love them dearly. And I had a conversation with one, and she said, well, my husband's in charge. And not knowing my background, I said, oh, he's in charge? Why? Because God said it. Oh, really? God said that? Do you think God would say that one gender is better than another? Do you think God, since he created man, he created woman equal, then, well, this is what the word says. And I wanted to argue so bad, and I just told myself, shut up. This is none of your business. Shut up, that's where she's at. And so it's hard for me. I've always been a big mouth. And
I looked at her again.
So it's hard for me, but I work on it now. I just say, that's their business, that's what they do. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do, blah, blah, blah. I justify it for myself to make myself be okay. Now, I forget is this the video?
Yeah.
Okay, before we do that. So, anyway, I had to find out what was going on for me to settle my idea of how could God have said this. I started researching, that's way before internet. I would check out books that at the library. I would find out things I was sent for them about the women, powerful women, goddess energy. And what I found out blew my mind. And I hope it blows the mind of anybody else that studies this stuff. But you know why the church, I don't want to talk about any specifically, but put down women, why they don't let women become priests, why they don't let women do this and do that. In other countries, they make them wear all this stuff to cover up their face. It's because men have an innate fear of women. I know that's a big statement, but there's an innate fear that men have because at one time women were in control. Women ran things. Women were the warriors. Women fought in the war. I found out there were 7,000 documented cases of women in the Civil War who dressed like men because they wanted to fight. And they were hellacious warriors. So I guess this might not be now to play this thing.
Yeah, we just have it. Forward, go right.
Here, I'm going to let you do it. I've never done it. We won't.
Throughout history, women have had to fight to prove that anything men can do, they can do as well. For centuries, women have commanded armies, fought bravely, and often straight up dominated their enemies in combat. These are the most badass warrior women in history. Cthulhu was a warrior, military advisor, and the great-great-granddaughter of Genghis Khan. But as skilled as Cthulhu was at riding horses and with a bow and arrow, it was her wrestling prowess that made her the pride of the Mongol nation. Even Marco Polo commented on it in his writings. Cthulhu's clan placed great value in these wrestling matches, believing you were blessed by the gods if you won. There were no weight classes in these contests, anyone could wrestle anyone, and Cthulhu never lost. She famously had a standing decree that she would marry any man who could defeat her, but he would owe her 100 horses if he lost. She ended up with 10,000 horses and 0 husbands. Cthulhu is honored in Mongolia to this day, and the traditional Mongolian wrestling outfit is noticeably open-chested, to prove that the wrestler is not another wrestler princess. The Trung sisters, Trung Trac and Trung Nhi, are two of the most famous heroines in Vietnamese history. Many believe Vietnam wouldn't exist today if it weren't for them. In 40 CE, they led a rebellion against the harsh rule of the Han Dynasty of China, who had been occupying Vietnam for many years. They gathered 80,000 people to oppose the mighty Chinese, performing feats of bravery to convince people to join their cause. Once, killing a man-eating tiger, then writing their proclamation of war on its hide. They selected 36 women as generals, including their mother, and the army managed to drive their oppressors from Vietnamese land for 3 years before finally being overtaken. Before they could be captured, the sisters took their lives together by drowning. These warrior sisters are memorialized in poems, monuments, and are a source of pride to many women in Vietnam. Tomoe Gozen is a legend in Japanese history, the archetypal samurai woman warrior who fought in the Japanese civil wars of the 12th century. She was known for her beauty, bravery, and battle skills, capable of dealing even with demons or gods. Armed with a strong bow and longsword, she was a lead commander of the samurai army and amassed a Hall of Fame battle resume. In 1181, she defeated and collected the heads of 7 warriors in a single battle. In 1184, she led 300 men to battles 6,000 and was one of only 5 to survive. In the same year, when her commander and husband wanted to retreat, Tomoe rose straight into the offense, picked the worthiest opponent among them, and beheaded him. No one knows for certain what became of Tomoe after the war ended, but she is a prominent figure in modern Japanese culture, in the form of monuments, the subject of plays, and in festivals. As the kids say, Nakano Takeko was built different. At 6 years old, she was adopted by a master samurai swordsman who trained her in hand-to-hand combat for the next 15 years. Then, in 1868, a civil war broke out in Japan between the traditionalist samurai and modernists. Soon, the imperial army descended upon Nakano's home of Aizu, with 15,000 soldiers armed with guns to crush the last of the resistance. Armed with her trusty naginata alongside 5,000 others with their bows and arrows, Nakano stood ready to fight, just like her idol, Tomoe Gozen. Outnumbered and outgunned, they defended the castle for days. When soldiers finally broke through, 30 women who Nakano had handpicked and trained were the last line of defense. Nakano managed to dodge enough bullets to kill 6 soldiers before being fatally shot. In accordance with her wishes, her sister cut off her head for an honorable burial. Today, the Aizu region honors Nakano with an annual festival.
Okay. So that's why we don't have any swords in our house. So this goes on and on, and on and on, and on and on. But then there's still the thing about the Bible. How does it say women are men's helpers, men are in charge, what have you? Well, looked at that too. You know, the Bible, and there's a lot we love about the Bible, don't get me wrong, we're not Bible smashers, but there's so much in there, and there's so many contradictions, and contradictions, you say? I said that to a Methodist minister one. Name me one. Well, I've got a little thing here that says 101. And one of the most common ones, I bought it up in my early life there was, how many pairs of clean animals did God tell Noah to take into the ark? And I brought this into one of the ministers and I said, look, it says here, in Genesis 2, but that's Genesis 6, Genesis 7, it's 7. So is it 2 or 7? The guy said, well, you're questioning God right now. It's not, I'm questioning this Bible. Who wrote this Bible? Well, men. But men were inspired by God. I said, son of Sam said he was inspired by God too. So, is there no, it's infallible. Every word in the Bible is true. Which Bible? Because there's like 65 different Bibles and they're all different. You can't open every one of them and read them verbatim right on now because there's different. Not trying to be nitpicky, but it's not infallible. And so you have to challenge, you have to question. You have to question. God, Jesus said, ask, seek, knock, and you will find. So I'm, again, we use the Bible for history, and there's a lot of wonderful things, and a lot of wonderful things that Jesus said, but we don't know everything Jesus said. And a lot of what he said was written 67 years later. But if you count all the words in the Bible that Jesus said, some people say it was, if you count 1,000, or if you look at all the Gospels together, it's close to 2,000. So in all his time that in the Bible he spoke at the highest 2,000. Do you know what we speak today? Average of 7,000 words a day. And so everything that's said in the Bible is less than 2,000 words. So we don't know everything that Jesus said. But we feel it in our hearts. And if you want to question that, you can pray and you can ask, and you can ask your higher self. And it just rings true. A man of his status, a person of his status, and he was a man, would just not have said anything less than unconditional love and forgiveness, etc., etc., etc. So, in the Bible where it says, the helper, you don't want me to read this, I talked for a long time about this, all this stuff, and I'm going to boil it right down. It said that there's a phrase in the Bible, and it's the translation from the Hebrew and the Greek. They have a word named E-Z-E-R. And that's what they're saying, that's what women are. And it's called a helpful servant. But if you speak that Ezer from the back of the throat, Ezer, or whatever, like the Hebrews do, it means strength. And so they talk about the men, and after the men's thing, the word is Ezer. They were the strength. But the same word they put means the helper for women, good little women. And why is because humanity understands the power of women. They've seen it in the past. It goes all the way back. Women were warriors. Women were kick-ass. And that's when they decided they're going to take the power away from the women. And the true stories about Salem and the witches and stuff like that, now these women were healers. They worked with nature spirits. They really communicated on higher levels with spirituality. So they weren't witches, but that's what they were branded as, so men could overcome them, and the man ran the thing, and they said, we got rid of them, and they never burned them. I thought they burned the witches. They didn't. They hung them, or they dipped them in water and drowned them. But that's what they did to powerful women. How dare you stand up to men? How dare you? And so that was the message that I tried to give these women that I talked to, and because I couldn't understand. And I recall this time when I was called a call, and this woman was beat up. She was in the hospital, and her kids were bruised up. And I went up there and I said, found out the story. Her husband had done this. And I said, well, we need to file charges. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. I said, you've got to file charges against him. You think, he's not going to stop. You don't stop that kind of behavior. If you want to work together with people that were willing to work with you, maybe you have some chance, but he's not going to change. He's not going to change. That was my speech back then. And about the fourth, we kept going back to her house. And I finally got back there one time, and he'd shot her. He killed her. He shot her with a shotgun. Those things stick with me. But when you see those kind of things, you never lose it. All of a sudden, it pops into your mind, and you go, oh, God. And it still bugs me when I've been on a thing about wanting to forgive everybody in my life, looking back and forgiving my parents, forgiving this, really working on it. Help me. Have I really forgiven this person? How do I, on and on and on. And all these people in my life, try it yourself. All these people come popping up. Ooh, wow. And some of the things I've done to people, oh my God, how could I have ever done that? And all the things that I blamed other people for, oh my God. And I had to come to realize that, just like me, they were doing the best they can with what they have. And everybody's doing the best they can with what they have right now. Doesn't mean it's right. They're doing the best they can. Doesn't mean it can't change. But for right now, they're doing the best they can. And that's what they did back then. They did the best they could. And we just keep holding on to those things. We keep holding on to those things that break our hearts because we think about them back then. Well, if they had stayed close, whatever, maybe they would have changed. I've changed. I've been called everything from A to Z, and I've deserved it because that's who I was then. But this is who I am now, and this is who you are right now, too. And so I don't know where I am on time here because I didn't start the timer. So let me just brief this here. So my message to women is just that. Don't believe me. Don't think I'm here to tell you what to believe or what not to believe. We don't do that in Unity. We don't have, this is no dogma. This is what you have to believe. No. But find if your higher self, whatever you see as God or Jesus or whatever have you, do something wonderful for yourself and forgive yourself for ever having judged anybody else. And it goes around. Now I want to come to the point on here. Once there's many religions who don't come in. That's right. Many of the nation's largest denominations, Roman Catholics, Southern Baptists, Mormons, Latter-day Saints, Orthodox Church, do not ordain women or allow them to lead in congregations. Other religious groups have taken small steps in the direction of female coordination. And there's a lot of famous people. There's a lot of famous people that could have done some really good things for women because they were held in esteemed high places. However, they were still human. I'm going to go through some of these things. Nietzsche said, when a woman has scholarly inclinations, there's usually something wrong with her sexual organs. You slap him in the face if he was there. John Wayne, they have the right to work. They have the right to work wherever they want to, as long as they have dinner ready when you get home. And it's cute, but it's not funny. It's the way they look at women. And people look up. Martin Luther, this surprised me. The words and works of God is quite clear that women were made either to be wives or prostitutes. Napoleon Bonaparte, nature intended women to be our slaves. They are our property. How do you think this follows down to family, to family, to family, to family? Women are the rails on which men run. Norman Mailer, a little bit of rape is good for a man's soul. What? Confucius, it is the law of nature that women should be held under the dominance of man. Another thing, he said, 100 women are not worth a single testicle. And when we say, well, Confucius says, it must be right. Confucius don't know what the hell he's talking about. Sorry. Aristotle, a proper wife should be as obedient as a slave. Ted Turner, Henry VIII didn't get divorced, he just had Wise's head chopped off when he got tired of them. That's a good way to get rid of a woman, no alimony. It's cute, but it's not funny. Because this goes, people read this, they talk to their daughters about this. This gets me. Pat Robertson, feminism encourages women to leave their husbands, kill their children, practice witchcraft, destroy capitalism, and become lesbians. How many decades was he on that he taught so many people who taught their children, who taught their children, who taught their children? Rush Limbaugh, feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women access to the mainstream of society. Nietzsche again, everything in a woman is a riddle and everything in a woman has one solution. It's called pregnancy. Educating a beautiful woman is like pouring honey into a fine Swiss watch. Everything stops. It's a legitimate rape. If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut the whole thing down. I've got to stop this. Any woman who does not give birth to as many children as she is capable is guilty of murder. Buddha. Women with their two-fingered wisdom have a difficult time understanding what I teach. But he was a man, remember. Siddhartha was a man. If it were not for women being admitted into our order, my teachings would have lasted 1,000 years. Now they will not last 500. If rape is inevitable, just relax and enjoy it. So that's the bad stuff. Now here's some. I'm for Hugh Jackman. I'm for gender equality because it should never be any other way, all right? Daniel Craig, isn't that 007? Yeah. Women are responsible for 2/3 of the work done worldwide, yet earn only 10% of the total income and own 1% of the property. So are we equals? Until the answer is yes, we must never stop asking. Yeah, 007. There is nothing more, that is behavioral science, there is nothing more rare nor beautiful than a woman being unapologetically herself, comfortable in her perfect imperfection. To me, that is the true essence of beauty. Mahatma Gandhi, of all the evils for which man has made himself responsible, none is so degrading, so shocking, or so brutal as his abuse of the better half of humanity, the female sex. British royalty, Prince Harry. We know that when women are empowered, they immeasurably improve the lives of those around them, their families, their communities, and their countries. That's what I say to Nietzsche and all those guys that didn't like women. I should have had that person. All right, so these are, oh yeah, I remember reading that they found, they said the church found, Vatican, whatever, armor that was used by warriors. And they dug these in, some were in caves and some were down in holes, whatever you bird. And they couldn't, when they brought them up, they all were made to fit women. They were smaller things, and the men had these big. But they were wondering, why are all these armors? There's armors and there's swords, a whole cache of weapons, the shorter swords and bows and arrows and spears that were definitely made for women to carry. And they were like, oh my God, we can't let people see this. And because, you know, women are going to take over. What's it? They will replace us, whatever. I'm going to another story now. But this is where some of them were. Now these are, you're going to see, look like Hollywood models, but this is an example of the armor that they found. This was in Egypt. Egyptian women had most freedom, were most adored and respected. And that's one of the Egyptian warriors. And some of the stuff that they found is similar to what you see here. And how am I doing? Time. Okay. Just read a few of these. A strong woman stands up for herself. A stronger woman stands up for everybody else. And one day she discovered that she was fierce and strong and full of fire. And not even she could hold herself back because her passion burned brighter than her fears. Mark Antony. She was a wild one, always stomping on eggshells that everyone else tiptoed on. She was powerful not because she wasn't scared, but because she went on so strongly despite the fear. One of the most courageous things you can do is identify yourself, know who you are, what you believe, and where you want to go. Avoiding danger is no safer in the long run than outright exposure. The fearful are caught as often as the bold. And one more, I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing that it must be done does away with fear. Rosa Parks. And I guess I'm done. Is that it? Well, I always think I'm going to run out of stuff, which I've already done, and I always put extra stuff in. But anyway, that's so when I hear the stuff going on today and the abortion things, and I certainly believe that that's between the God of your understanding and then the woman. I believe that people should be given, especially in this case, women should be given the power to make their own decisions. And one of the arguments, I talked about a couple weeks ago about reincarnation, but one of the things is that, well, this baby has a chance to come into the world and be born and raised and go to school and grow up and have fun and go to college and get jobs and have children. And you're depriving that baby will never have, well, if the baby is hovering around and that baby is not going to be born, the soul knows. The child has been here before, and the child knows on a higher level that it's time to find another way into the earth. And so that soul will not, nobody dies, but that soul, when you, from so many sources, and how do you know this? Well, I know it with my heart, and I'm not infallible by any means. But the baby doesn't fully lock itself into the body. That hovers over the body. It talks with the higher soul of the mother. When you're sleeping, you're out of body, you're going into different dimensions, and you are actually communicating. You don't remember it because it would drive you crazy if you did. They'd call you schizophrenic if you could remember what was going on. But there's more going on than what we realize. We think we're humans. No, we're not. We're powerful spiritual beings. And what we're supposed to do is come to recognize that. You become aware of it through prayer, through meditation. Speak to the God of your understanding, because that is real. You're not alone, even if you feel locked up and alone, because you have, as you have, you will do when you pass over and go into the spiritual realm, depending upon your spiritual growth, what have you. You will be with people down here that you know, and you'll be encouraging them, you'll be talking with them. And when you go to sleep and you leave your body, you're communicating with them. It's all going on. So anyway, I'm just throwing a bunch of stuff out, but I just believe that we need to not pull ourselves down, but raise ourselves up so that women around can raise themselves up. And I look back and for once I was so mad at my father, but if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gotten on this thing. I wouldn't have been drawn to empowering women. But it bothered me so much when he would scream at my mother, "Shut the hell up, woman!" And we were like, oh my God, I ran away from home when I was 15. Joined the Navy when I was 17. Lived on the streets of Miami because I didn't want to go home to New York. So I've been through a lot, and so have you. You have been through hell and high water, and we know so many of you intimately. We would love to know you even deeper, but we know you're going through all this stuff too. And you're doing the best you can with what you got. So lighten up on yourself. Be kind to yourself, and be kind to everybody else. And anyway, love one another. God bless.
Thank you so much, Barry. Let's have a little time in meditation. And this is a great time to just ask your higher self, you know, what is it that I want to take with me from today's message? And, you know, we had a chance yesterday to talk with lots of people who are really interested in the spiritual path. And it was wonderful to be able to share with folks that everybody has their own path. What a blessed gift that Spirit has given us, this life to journey with others, but to know that we don't have to believe what they believe. They don't have to believe, and we can still walk together. We can still walk together hand in hand. As Barry said, we are all doing the best we can. And so take that message deeper this morning. Let that knowingness, that awareness, yes, I am doing the best that I can at my current state of understanding, at my current state of awareness. And I love myself just the way I am. I deeply and profoundly honor and respect and love the divine feminine in me and the divine feminine in each one of us. Yes, even the men have that beautiful spiritual aspect of themselves where they indeed give the gifts of love and joy and peace. And so as we prepare to go out into the craziness of the world today and this week and into the coming days and weeks, we walk with pride and with a sense of assurance that we don't walk alone, that we are loved, and with a greater sense of compassion for ourselves and our path and for each other. And so let's just take a moment of silence to allow that to settle in. invite you to just place your hand on your heart as we together say thank you. Thank you, thank you. And so it is.